Hi, it's Mike Ames here, and I'm going to talk to you in this video about digitalisation. I'm going to start with an example of how powerful this really is. Last year, I got a phone call from a CEO of a medium to large outsource company, and he said, "I've just watched a video of yours and I really like it, and can we talk?" Turned out it was a video that we'd done explaining a thing called a revenue factory, which is just a way of looking at sales and marketing in a very simplified way, and yet with a whole bunch of innovations in it, and he loved it. Bottom line was, that was my biggest client last year, by a country mile in fact, from that project. That is digitalisation in action. It was a piece of digital content designed purely to add value. There was absolutely no sales in it at all. You can watch it actually. There's nothing there, and yet it resulted in a client. So in this video, I'm going to really explore and drill down on digitalisation by answering three questions. Why should we digitalise? What should we digitalise? And how can we digitalise? But before we do that, why don't we try and give digitalisation a definition? Now, if you Google digitalisation, you get, well, a lot of different answers. There's not one single definition that's online. In fact, most of them point back to digitisation, which is a little different. Because digitisation has been around since the 1950s, to be fair. It's basically encoding information, taking the analogue and turning it digital. Whether that's loading a computer system with data or, I don't know, scanning a document, it's all digitisation. But digitalisation is different to that. Now, this is the definition I'm going to be using for the rest of this talk, and here it is. Digitalisation is representing valuable knowledge or expertise that is traditionally delivered in person in a digital format, and that's usually video, audio, or an infographic. So now let's answer the first of those questions. Why do we need to digitalise? Well, we all know that millennials like to absorb information through videos and audios as they're walking along with their kind of phone plugged into their ear. But it goes much further than that. We have a gym at home which has an exercise bike in it, and it broke. So I mentioned this to Mrs. Ames. A few days later it was fixed. I said to her, "Oh, it's great. Getting the Life Fitness person out to fix it, Life Fitness engineer out." And she said, "No, I did it myself." She Googled it, found the problem, some sort of battery thing, went on to YouTube, found out how to fix it, and done it. See, we had a manual, a written manual. She didn't bother with that. No one does really. She just wanted the small amount of information that she wanted to fix it, and she wanted it quickly, and she wanted it in video form. That's digitalisation right there. So this is all about taking information in the format that we want. These days, video, audio, and pictorial formats are beginning to outpace the written word. There's more to this, so let's just expand the argument a little further. Think how many of us watch TV these days. We don't just sit down and watch from 7 till 10 and go to bed. What we do is record the programs that we want, and we watch them when we want to watch them, usually skimming through the adverts. Or we use on-demand TV like Netflix or Amazon Prime to choose the programs that we want. So in other words, we're watching what we want, when we want, and where we want. And that's how people like to absorb most information, and they're in control of it. In other words, they're having their entertainment on demand. Well, I would suggest that you need to run your business on demand, because if you don't, they're going to go somewhere else and get it the way they want it. So when answering the question, why do we need to digitalise? The answer is simple. Because these days, that's what the people want. And if you don't provide it to them, as I said, they're off. Let's move on to the next question, which is, what should we digitalise? Now, if you think about it, your business has two big groups of important stakeholders that it needs to serve. One is clients, or people you'd like to be clients. The other one is employees, and people you'd like to be employees. And what you need to do is communicate 4 key messages to these people. Now, there are other messages as well you need to communicate, but these 4 are absolutely crucial and usually very consistent. So what I'm going to do now is go through these one at a time. The first is capability, the range of products and services that you offer. In the past, we've always delivered this in big chunks of information on our website or our sales brochures. And quite frankly, you still need to do that. But the world has moved on now. We need this extra layer of small chunks of digitalized information that people can absorb when and where they want to. And you know what? They're going to build the big picture for themselves. They'll figure out what you do by what you publish. And here's another interesting thing. That is much more powerful than having just read it on a website. Let's move on to number 2 now, credibility. In other words, proof that you're good at what you do. We live in the TripAdvisor world. If you want to book a hotel, then you don't necessarily go to the hotel's website. That might be an afterthought. What you do first is you go to TripAdvisor, see what people are saying about it. Because testimonials are a great proof of, well, quality. And so therefore, the more testimonials you can get, particularly if they're independent through something like TripAdvisor, the more powerful it is. But there's another piece here, is that we're going to provide our own testimonials on our websites. Of course we are, and on our collateral. But typically they'll be written. If they're not named, by the way, if they don't have the name of the person and the company they work for, they're next to useless now, so they have to be named. But increasingly, we're digitalizing our testimonials. We're actually putting them in video form, sometimes audio, but definitely video. And if you do that, research tells us you're going to be 6 times more likely to be believed. So people watch something on video and they're 6 times more likely to believe what they're being told about you than if they read it in a testimonial. The same message, massively so. So digitalizing testimonials is very important. The third thing is differentials. Differentials are unique features about your product or service that give people a reason to choose you. So if you're looking to sell things to people, if they can't differentiate you from the competition, they're more than likely going to stay with their current suppliers, or perhaps they'll go with the cheapest. If you're trying to employ people and you can't differentiate yourself, again, they'll probably stay where they are, or maybe they'll just go to the company that offers them the most money. And yet we know for millennials, salary is the 3rd most important thing, not the 1st. So it's not just about the money. But the big thing is people want to see these differentials in action, not what you say about yourself, or even what other people say about you, how different you are, but it's what you do. You must demonstrate those differentials. And one of the ways you can do that is in the content that you produce and distribute. And last thing is your values. That is, why you do what you do the way you do it. Now, the best way to illustrate this, if you've not already seen it, is that very famous Simon Sinek video on TED.com. And essentially what he's saying is that people don't buy what you do or how you do it. They buy why you do it. And that's particularly, I think, important when recruiting staff, because they want to go to a company that's aligned to them. But also I would argue that people buy from companies that have got similar value sets, beliefs, the way in which you work is the way that they want. So to be able to communicate that value is very important. But you have to do it, again, not what you say. I mean, you can do that if you like. These are our values. There's no harm in that. But actually, it's how you do things. Those values have got to kind of seep out through everything that you do and everything you communicate. So, that question then, what do we need to digitalize? The answer is simple. The core messages for your stakeholders. Now, let's look at the last of those questions. How can we digitalize? Now, this broadly breaks down into 3 different categories, and here they are. Content, tools, and promotion. So the deal is, our core messages are best illustrated by adding value through content. Let me be very clear what I mean by that. Content for us is taking what you know, knowledge, information, and taking what you can do and putting it in a format that can be digitalized. Okay, so it's really important. So take the 2 examples that I've used so far in this talk. One was taking information with a little bit of know-how and presenting that in a video about the revenue factory. The other was just straight know-how, expertise, presented by somebody that understood life fitness, cycling machines. You see, that's the important thing. You really have to be able to bring some value through your content. Now, there's a warning to be had here, so please take note. Whatever content you decide to deliver must be of real value to your stakeholders. Because if it isn't, guess what? You're actually part of the problem, not part of the solution. So make sure you understand fully what your audience really values, and then you can digitalize it and deliver it to them. Let's look at the next thing now, tools. Wow, these days there are no end of tools available for you to digitalize your material. So for example, YouTube, Vimeo if you want to do video work, Audio Boom and SoundCloud for podcasts, that's audio work, things like Periscope and Snapchat, and even live feeds from Twitter and Facebook if you want to transmit video live. Or if you think you might like to represent things in some sort of infographic, then Canva or Picture Chart are the two that you want. The deal is they're all easy to use, massively so, and they're free for most part. So there's no obstacle to getting in there. It's not going to take you a lot of time, and it's certainly not going to take you a lot of money. Now let's move on to the last of the things that we need to consider in the how-to section, promotion. Imagine you were going to hold a party and you decided to get Jamie Oliver to do the food, Fatboy Slim to come and do the DJing, although listen Fatboy, it's 80s music or nothing would be my stance. And perhaps continuing the 80s theme, Jean-Paul Gaultier to do the room decoration. Wouldn't it be fabulous? Well, I think it would be. And then no one comes and we wonder why, and then we remember because we didn't invite anybody to the party. The only time someone would come is if they happened to be passing and decided to drop in. Well, do you know what? Many people use their content in exactly the same way. They produce brilliant content, they just don't get it out to the people. So what's important is you must promote these currencies, these value adds that you produce in your content so that they actually get to the people they're intended to be. In other words, you invite some people to the party. And I would suggest that you use two methods to do that. The first is social media. My favourites are Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook and YouTube. Second is email lists. I would recommend probably MailChimp or Constant Contact, or sometimes your CRM system will have a built-in mailing feature that you could perhaps use. Let me just tell you one brief story to illustrate once again how important it is to promote your material. We produced an off-the-cuff blog at one of my workshops. It was basically, we were talking about customer care, and I was asking why clients leave and go to other suppliers, and there were usual sort of things were coming out, quality and service levels and price and things, which all have an impact. But actually 67% of clients leave one supplier and go to another for a completely different reason. And when I told them, it blew them away, absolutely blew them away. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. So we went into another room, we filmed this blog. You can find it if you go to my blog and just search for 67, it comes out. And we published it. We published it through social media, and then a few days later we put it out as an email, so they linked from the email to the video. I get a reply to that email from a CEO who I vaguely knew from years ago, who's now the CEO of a massive Australian company based in Sydney. I think their turnover is $1 billion Australian dollars. And he said, you can't believe how timeliness this is, because we're having this discussion right now. We're losing clients and we want to know why. Would you mind if I show you a video at our sales conferences in Asia Pacific, Europe and North America? I said no. Guess what? Another client with, in fact, as we speak, just talking about another piece of work. So again, it was a piece of content, not about promotional sales. It was just adding value, but it represents my values of innovation and creativity, and certainly proven research, which at the end of the day is what people are buying from me. Okay, let me just wrap this up. So, how can we digitalize? Again, simple really. The answer is by giving multimedia content through social media and email. Okay, before I just wind up, there's just a couple of other little benefits I want to give you about this approach to digitalization. The first one is differentiation. If you're producing great stuff and you're actually digitizing and promoting it, you'll notice that most people don't do that. They just don't. The stuff they produce is either very dry and very dull, or you've got to read it, or in some cases they've got it but they don't actually promote it. If you're different, you stand out. And I think this whole differentiation piece is one of the most difficult challenges that we all face and overcome, and this digitalization will help you do that. The second thing is, what do companies like Amazon and eBay and lynda.com and even LinkedIn have in common? Well, I'll tell you what it is. They all have engaged audiences who trust them. If you continually deliver great content to people, they'll begin to trust you more. And remember this: engaged audiences buy more and so deliver more profit. Let me just wind up now with a couple of questions for you and a piece of advice. First question is, what are your core messages? I mean, after all, we know what the 4 headings are, but what are the details that sit behind that? Because if you're confused about that, all you're going to do is confuse your audience. And the second thing is, what expertise or knowledge do you possess that you could digitalise and therefore communicate those messages, those core messages to your stakeholders? So here's my advice. Get out there and land grab your territory before your competitors do. And remember, it's never too late to start, although the longer you leave it, the harder it becomes. Okay, well, that's about it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it useful, and I hope you found it interesting. Now, if you'd like to receive more content like this, all you need to do is add yourself to our content list. There's a little box underneath this video that you can do that with. Now, if you do that, I'm going to make you 3 promises, and here they are. Number 1, we'll always aim to give you innovative, interesting and useful content. Number 2, we'll never spam or hassle you by email, or in fact any other format. And number 3, we'll never allow anybody to have access to your email address. Quite frankly, we value it too much. So, hope to see you real soon, and in the meantime, as we say in Flair, if you want it, go and get it. You take care now.